Very next thing that we have to do is we have to prepare to challenge the new regime that's coming in Washington. And I know a lot of people are very fearful of the Trump administration, and I know that that there's going to be a blinding number of attacks, but I think this is mainly a time to be optimistic, not scared. Because when that election result was announced, within hours there were tens of thousands of people in the streets, and it was overwhelmingly young people. I went out a couple times for those street protests in Chicago, and I know young people around the country. I watch them on social media. I mean, there may have been as many nationally as 1 million people that took part in protests, in street protests, in the weeks following that election. That has never happened in American history. Never. Not for Reagan, not for George Bush, not for Bush Jr., not for Nixon. That has never happened. In fact, if you want to find a phenomenon, you want to find a presidential election that's kind of similar, you got to go back to Abraham Lincoln to find a moment when the country was so divided about an election. And you know what happened when Lincoln got into office? Within a few months, the South succeeded. Now, I'm not predicting secession or civil war, but I am predicting this because it's an easy prediction. The struggle against the Republican agenda, against the Trump agenda, it's on. And the next big wave is going to be January 20th. Every city in America is going to have a protest. I'm not going to say they should have a protest. They will. And they'll be massive. And Washington, D.C., there will be hundreds of thousands of people protesting against Trump's agenda. And he's going to have a real fight on his hands, turning back the hands of time the way he wants to. And I feel glad to be alive. I'm looking forward to January 20th.
Nice.
There's a dozen different groups that are going to Washington for protests, but there's already a protest called in Chicago. SDS has called for campus walkouts, and there's going to be protests every day of that week. On the 14th, the immigrant rights groups are planning a march. On the 19th, I know the teachers' unions are planning an action in the morning on the 19th in cities around the country where teachers and students and parents are going to hold hands around schools to demonstrate that their schools are safe places for immigrants. And that's just the ones I know about, So there's going to be protests, and once people start protesting, they're going to want to keep it going. So I think that the beginning of the Trump administration is going to see a really high tide of struggle.